What is going on today, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And today's video, as you can see, there's a little disco, well, it's not a true disco potato, but it's kind of a disco potato in the car. We have the turbo mounted up, kind of test fitting right now. That way we can break into this video subject, or at least the first subject of this video. Right away we're going to work on getting the water lines plumbed, and then also doing our oil feed line. The oil drain we can't do just yet, but in the meantime we're going to go ahead and route our wastegate as well as our blow-off valve. But let's get to mounting our water lines, and let me show you the turbo so far. So to get you guys up to speed real quick, what I ended up doing was test fitting everything, putting it all together. That way I could start figuring out the intercooler piping, which I'm gonna have to bring back to brake bank probably, to modify just a little bit to fill some of the gaps that we got going on. You can kind of tell it's a very, very short 90 that we need here. In the original full-blown kit, it was actually kind of a longer 90 that went around the washer bottle, but we're no longer worrying about that, and we're a little closer to the core support than the original kit as well. So I've done my homework, so when we do get to the piping, I'll be able to show how it's supposed to go. And also in general, I just wanted to build some confidence and just get this kit together off camera. That way I'm not fumbling around as much, and I kind of have a better understanding. So speaking of which, I went ahead and already clocked the turbo. This is the oil feed right here. You got the water ports on both sides. Then obviously the oil drain is on the bottom. What I tried to do with the oil drain was essentially orientate it as much as I could, kind of shooting towards the area that the line is going to go. And then also kept in mind here how close I was to the actual turbo flange. That way the oil line doesn't just come out and hit that immediately. So it's clocked already where it needs to be. It also needs a specific clock for this pipe to really fit correctly. Right now, believe it or not, once everything is hooked up, there won't be anything really touching, I don't believe, or at least it'll be very, very minimal. So that's it so far, so let's get back to it, getting the water lines all hooked up and seeing how we're gonna route this. So admittedly, this is not how full-blown would route their water lines on their particular kit. This is the JDL way of routing your water lines, just for the record, and just so you see the deviation or recognize the deviation. The full-blown kit uses a T that goes off of one of your water sensors that's right off the block. It also does that for the oil feed. Now, while that's probably perfectly well and fine, I really did like the way that JDL did it, where they use the coolant lines that are going to your throttle body to warm your throttle body in really cold conditions. That's what it's there for. So what I ended up doing was deleting the 90 that went into the throttle body, and now the water feed goes directly to the turbo, and then from the turbo back to the block, and it skips the throttle body entirely. If you want a little more detail on this, check out Ian Barton's video where he went over this, pretty big detail, but it's very simple once you get down there and you start to take a look at it. So I just opted for the easier option, the way I saw it, or the more efficient option of just getting the lines up and out of the way. If I would have gone the full-blown route, the lines would go down and then towards where my oil drain was going to be. So I hope you guys understand why I kind of chose to do things this way. I don't think it really matters whether you do it with the T's or this way, but one thing I was concerned about was having so many different T's, the T for the oil feed, the T for the water feed. Just more T's is more problems, or I'll say more potential problems. So we ended up doing the JDL method for both the oil feed and the water lines, as well as the oil drain, since we have the JDL oil pan. All right, guys, water lines are done. I'm just gonna double check that we can get the intake on, no problem. It looks like that's gonna be the case. It'll sit like that. I'm thinking these water lines will attach here somehow. Probably gonna have a protective sleeve over this, and then zip tie it here, and maybe the same thing for the oil line, or maybe no protection for the oil line because it's that metal hard line. But I think this is pretty solid here. Next up, we're gonna try to do the oil feed from that little bung there that you see. All right, so we're gonna give this a shot. I have the oil feed fitting on the top. We have the straight on the top. Here, we have the option to do a 90 instead, if we'd like, but I'm gonna try it with this first. Let's just see if this is possible with the existing line. So we got our oil line hooked up right now. Unfortunately, I missed it with the camera. I was zoomed in too much on that fitting. But it works out, I believe. This is actually not touching. I will still get a sheath though for it, just for this bottom part. Over here, it's not touching either. It's just hanging in suspension, and it kind of folds in with everything. These water lines also, they're pretty much gonna be right here. So boom, we'll have the two lines completely separate of each other. We're not hitting any belts. I'm pretty sure we have a good clock on the turbo. It's not too far angled. So this looks freaking sweet. All right guys, we are gonna route the vacuum lines now. So we're gonna be doing our wastegate, which is down here. I'll show you the detail in a second. And then our blow-off valve as well. I still need to cap this port. I just had to decide which port I was going to use, since the TurboSmart on the wastegate and the blow-off valve, you can opt for either side. Now this line and the fittings I got from Motion Raceworks, it is a little bit overkill for a 2-liter boxer engine, but I really liked it, and when I saw the tutorials he did on it, as well as just in general what the applications are usually used for, I just really thought it was kind of a solid option to start that I don't have to fuss with much, hopefully. I mean, who knows, we might still have boost leaks or whatever from other failures, but the really cool part about this line is, let's start it where we want it, back here. We're just gonna push it in. Once you hear that little click, it's in there. So that line is officially connected. No fussing with hose clamps or anything like that. And what I want to do, I think, is come through this wiring. We're going to aim this one towards the back. And by the way, these are swivel fittings as well, which is the really cool. I really like that part about it. So now we can go something to this effect. And then these little cutters I got here are from Home Depot, I believe. I forget what they're called exactly, but I believe they're not cable cutters, pipe cutters. And I actually had a hard time cutting through that. So although it's ugly, I think that cut will be fine. And then to remove it, you just push down and pull out, and then boom. We're gonna wire this first just for a normal wastegate setup. And then at a later point, what we can do for the boost controller, wherever it ends up, because it's probably gonna end up here or back here potentially, we're just going to put a T in it. Then that T will feed the boost controller. The boost controller will run the line back down to this wastegate. And it looks to me like we have a lot more line than I thought I would. This is a 10-foot roll, and it was pretty cheap, honestly. So it looks like we'll easily be able to guess and check with this stuff. I want to make sure the next time I cut it though, I get a cleaner cut, that's for sure. That works so much better right there. I don't know if you guys even saw how bad the first one was, but all I did this time was just literally saw it off like it was a cucumber. And that worked out really, really well. So I'm probably gonna clean up this other end that we did real quick. so something like that. Or it holds it right here. All right, so next up, let me hook up the intercooler piping some more, figure out some more of it, and then show it to you in detail so that if you're installing this, you have an idea of where all these pipes should go. So I actually ended up getting way further than I thought I would. And let me just show you all the fittings so you understand how this fits up. So we have the fat coupler, which is just straight through. There's no change. It's the only fat coupler. That's for your intake. So then your intake tube runs into this very weird looking coupler that's a fat end. It goes skinny to fit through your headlight area. Then it opens back up to meet this next tube here. And you'll note that all the tubes on this side are much larger than the ones over there, which you'll see in just a second here. So big fat 45 tube goes into a big fat 45 coupler, just a normal coupler. And that is it for this side. And I believe I have just enough clearance to run it just as it is. I think this coupler is helping out because it has a lot of flexibility to it. So it's not as bad as this other side, which has a lot more piping than that. So let's go through this real quick. You're gonna want your turbo clocked this direction. It really can only go one way with this kit. You're gonna have a 90-degree coupler. The smaller ones, I believe this is 2.5 inch, maybe 2 inch, goes to a small pipe, which is almost like an S pipe. This S pipe is the most radical curve pipe in the kit. So that's how you'll know it's this one. It literally does a big S and comes around here, ends about here. And you have another 90-degree, maybe 2.5 inch coupler. Like I said, the smaller ones. That smaller coupler then leads into the piping here, which is another very skinny one, almost like an S, but more of a 90 to a 45 in a sense. This one is supposed to curve around your windshield washer reservoir, which we've since taken out. So it no longer has to do like this crazy turn. And then not only that, with the way that we have the intercooler set up with the slant and everything, we really can't take the room out of here because the coupler size is just way too small for this area. And yeah, as you can see with our setup here, it's just way too close and there's too much piping, not enough coupler to be able to make up the difference. So I've kind of marked out on this already what we need to cut. And then also we're going to shorten this pipe as well. You can probably barely see that marker. So we're going to shorten these, get them bead rolled with brake bank. And then after that, we should be able to just jam these suckers in with the couplers that we have, and we'll have an entire complete system. As soon as we get the oil drain in and route that, that is really the last piece to going turbo besides finishing the intercooler piping, of course. So with that, since we are so close to getting this car running, I'm gonna go ahead tonight, grab the EcuTech information, grab my dongle, as well as the license, and go ahead and purchase a tune from Counterspace Garage with Zach. He's one of the best tuners, I think, in the world for our car. It's just kind of beyond a doubt at this point with how many he's done and how many references he gets, essentially. So in order to get that process started, I just need to pay them some money so that they have to pay attention to me and answer some of my questions. Because one thing I do want to ask Zach is, does he even want me to change injectors knowing that I'm not going to be on E85 right now? Would it be more simple for him to tune on this setup as opposed to the upgraded setup with the upgraded injectors? I know for a fact that if I'm not going E85, he already holds the opinion that you do not need to do the fuel pump. And he's mentioned that more often than not, something goes wrong in the install of the fuel pump, and then you don't really need it that much unless you're E85. So I got a bunch of questions that I would like to ask him, but obviously I don't want to be that guy and ask him for free. So we're going to initiate that process tonight, get it going. I'll catch you guys later once I have a little more parts, a little more update, you know, one or the other. Peace. What is up, guys? We are back in the garage. We have all of our parts. Well, kind of, sort of. Yeah, we have what we're gonna put on the car, at least for now, and see if this turbo setup works. And let me just show you what I'm talking about, because the last thing we are missing right now is our oil drain. I initially thought I was gonna be able to use the full-blown kits. I believe it's a 90-degree AN fitting on JDL's oil pan, but I'm kind of running into complications running the JDL oil pan with the full-blown kit, which I really should have known better, to be frank, but we're gonna get around it, and let me show you how we're gonna do that. So it's gonna be incredibly difficult to see anything going on in here, but we have our 90. Where is it? Here we go. We have our 90 coming out of the oil pan. This header setup I don't think meant for lines to go through it, although it is kind of working out down here. But let me show you the one issue I'm running into. So up in here, the oil return line, this is where it's going into. And this is a coolant line that's like right freaking smack dab next to it. And what I've done is I've moved the fastener, or the clip fastener for this hose for the coolant off to the side. That way it affords me as much room as possible. And we're literally gonna bend, or we're gonna make that bend one way or another with this AN line. I've tried it a couple times. It seems like it's gonna do it. It's definitely a guessing game here whether or not this works out, but just for a precaution and just to let you guys know what I'm gonna do here to avoid screwing this up is put some kind of either tape or cover along the braid that's going to be next to it. That way it doesn't chafe it. I'm more worried about chafing at this point than I am the temperature, just because these lines are here in a normal case, and as you can see, they're right next to the headers in normal cases. Even if you weren't turbo, your headers are all throughout here, so they're right next to these lines at all sorts of different points. So you really can't escape the heat in this car. So we're just gonna send it, or attempt to send it, and see what happens. So I'm gonna measure these cuts and come back down here, and hopefully we can actually assemble this. All right, guys, I've been working on this for quite some time now. I also put some hose clamps on just to understand how these worm clamps work and just make sure that this is gonna work out. And man, this shit is so solid. It's ridiculous. But anyways, that's our line right now on the top. I managed to kind of get it halfway between the tube and the belt. And I think what I'd like to do eventually is have some kind of hook that grabs this, that maybe ties in to the frame somehow. Some kind of metal hook that somewhere along the frame just has a bar that just hooks that line and just make sure it doesn't go that far. But then again, like, you can see I can't even push it into it. Anyways, let's check out this thing, which you can see the light coming through the line, so that means there's a gap, but there's like nothing there. So it's fastened down, it's there. If we start the car and we hear a bunch of clinking, we know exactly what it is. And yeah, we'll be redoing an oil pan, which is gonna suck so bad if that's the case. So we're on to the exhaust, and for the record, JDL overpipe, you have to do the jack thingy with the engine, which I must admit to you, I freaking hate doing. So let me hurry up and get this death trap settled. All right, guys, final update from down under. The death trap has been accomplished, or surviving the death trap has been accomplished. We got the full-blown downpipe leading to the JDL overpipe leading to the Ace header front pipe, which is a 2.5 to 3 inch. It's 3 inch here, and then next down to 2.5. So our over pipe is 2.5, our front pipe is 3, our down pipe is 3. So there's a little bit of a weird neck there, but the availability of 3 inch over pipes is just like far gone. Then we have the donut gasket here. As you can see, we no longer have that hanger coming from the transmission. I had to take it off because it just was not going to fit whatsoever. So this is a little bit janky, I guess you could say. It's got a little bit of movement to it, but it's not horrible, to be honest. I've seen quite a few cars with worse. But yeah, we're just going to have to see how this reacts. It's actually hitting back there on the gas tank more than anything. So, but this exhaust isn't forever. I mean, we've had it for a while now, the TRD, so we might be switching that out. But just knowing that we have some custom stuff going on, we might just get it professionally done by Brake Bank potentially or something like that. So that's it for the top. I believe we are all set to start the car, but I need to hop on the computer, get the tune off of Zach, off of my email, and just make sure I read up on that whole process over and over again before we start. Oh shit, it's doing that thing. Check it out. It's loading. It's a loading bar. That's so sick. All right, so just like OFT, I'm gonna be a good boy and not move, not breathe, and let this thing finish. Double check that nothing's screaming out of here. All right, here we go. Let's hope I remembered everything. My car's turbo! Woo! That ran so much smoother than I ever could have thought it would have run on the first go. Like, it seemed like it relearned, or like was going through the idle stuff very quickly. And yeah, that was pretty exciting to hear and see that it all worked out. I don't see any leaks yet, you know. We still have to drive it around. Like, this won't show you all your leaks just starting it for a second. I think you need to have that drive around time, let the lines kind of get the motion of the ocean in them, and, you know, progress from there, because you really don't know until the fat lady sings, you know. But I think that's going to be it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed part 2 of getting this turbo together, where we got our very first start. And I know probably some people thought it was only going to be 2 parts, but this is going to be pretty much ongoing. We still have another week or 2, in my opinion, of sorting out kinks, figuring things out, making sure that this car is actually running optimally. So like we have it to a point where it can, you know, pretty much limp down the road. But we need to get through all those growing pains, figure out what's working, what's not, what needs to change. If the oil return line needs to change, for instance, that's one thing that's on the very top of my mind. But the good thing is, at least when we started it just now, I wasn't hearing it like ding 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 smacking the header. So it sounds like everything is sticking where it should be. Everything is sticking where it should be. So we should be pretty good. It's just the fans, little things here and there that we need to figure out before we can hop on the road and start tuning for real. So that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. I'm super stoked. In the next video, hopefully we get some kind of like driving so we can bring it to 4,800 RPM and maybe we hear some boost kick in. All right, I'm done rambling. Hope you guys enjoyed part 2. Stay tuned for part 3. It is coming soon. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to tag along on these adventures, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.